Commander Zethkar of the Galactic Council's exploration fleet stared at the holographic display with growing unease. The readings from the Sol system made no sense according to every database in their vast archives. Humans were supposed to be a primitive species, barely capable of interstellar travel, yet the energy signatures coming from their outer planetary system suggested something far beyond their documented technological level. "Confirm those readings again," Zethkar ordered his sensor operator, a four-armed Nexilian whose multiple appendages danced across the control interface with practiced precision. "Energy output confirmed, Commander. Whatever the humans are building behind their gas giant called Jupiter, it's massive. The power consumption alone rivals a small star," the operator replied, his translator device rendering his clicking language into standard galactic common. Zethkar's scaled skin rippled with concern. 3 months ago, routine surveillance of Earth had detected unusual energy spikes in the outer Sol system. Initial reports suggested possible weapons development, which would violate the primitive species protection treaty that Earth had unknowingly fallen under. But these new readings suggested something far more sophisticated than weapons. The bridge of the Council ship Vigilant Truth hummed with activity as crew members from a dozen different species worked to analyze the mysterious signals. The ship itself was a marvel of galactic engineering, stretching nearly 2 kilometers in length and capable of faster-than-light travel that could cross sectors in days rather than years. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," announced the communications officer, a tall, crystalline being whose body naturally amplified electromagnetic signals. On screen, Zethkar commanded. The holographic display shifted to show a middle-aged human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her brown eyes held an intensity that made Zethkar's instincts whisper warnings about underestimating this species. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You are in violation of Earth's sovereign space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." A ripple of surprise went through the bridge crew. No primitive species had ever addressed the Galactic Council with such directness, let alone issued demands. Zethkar activated the communication array. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Galactic Council. Under Article 7 of the Primitive Species Protection Treaty, we have the right to investigate potentially dangerous technological development. You will submit to inspection immediately." Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "Commander, Earth is no longer bound by treaties we never agreed to. You have 30 minutes to leave our system." "Impossible," Zethkar muttered, then spoke louder. "Your species lacks the technology to enforce such demands. We are here for your own protection and the protection of the galaxy." 29 minutes 50 seconds, Chen replied calmly. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Zethkar had encountered over 200 different species during his career with the Council, but none had ever displayed such brazen confidence in the face of superior technology. "Sir, should we proceed with the inspection?" asked his second-in-command, a reptilian Thurian whose logical mind rarely grasped the subtleties of diplomacy. "The humans cannot possibly have developed weapons capable of threatening a Council vessel," Zethkar reasoned aloud. "Their most advanced ships barely qualify as interplanetary transports. Continue toward the energy source." The asterisk Vigilant Truth moved deeper into the Sol system, its sensors continuously scanning for threats. Earth's small fleet of exploration vessels and mining ships scattered before them like frightened insects, just as Zethkar expected. These humans might talk boldly, but they knew their limitations. As they passed the orbit of Mars, Zethkar noticed something odd about the human vessels fleeing before them. They weren't running in random directions as panicked crews might. Instead, they were moving in carefully coordinated patterns, almost as if they were herding the Council ship along a specific route. "Sir, we're detecting multiple ships converging on our position," the sensor operator announced. "Configuration unknown, but they're approaching from several vectors." Zethkar studied the tactical display. Dozens of small human vessels were indeed moving to surround them, but their tonnage was laughably inadequate compared to the Vigilant Truth asterisk. The largest human ship on record was barely 300 meters long. "They mean to threaten us with their entire fleet," Zethkar observed with amusement. "Maintain course. If they attempt to interfere, disable their engines with minimum force." But as the human vessels drew closer, something became apparent that made Zethkar's confidence falter. These ships weren't the primitive metal constructs his intelligence reports had described. They moved with perfect coordination, their hulls seemed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them, and their energy signatures suggested power sources far beyond what Earth should possess. "Commander, these vessels don't match our database records," the sensor operator reported with growing alarm. "Their technology level appears to be significantly advanced from our previous assessments." Before Zethkar could respond, Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge once again. "Commander, you have 15 minutes remaining. I suggest you reconsider your position." "How are they communicating with us?" Zethkar demanded. "Our transmission was encrypted with Council security protocols." "Unknown, sir. They shouldn't be able to break our encryption, but somehow they're bypassing all our communication safeguards." Zethkar felt the first real stirring of concern. The Council's technology was built on the accumulated knowledge of dozens of species over thousands of years. For a primitive world to casually break through their security suggested either a fundamental misunderstanding of human capabilities or something far more troubling. "Sir, we're approaching the Jupiter system. Energy readings are off the charts," the sensor operator announced. On the main display, Jupiter's massive bulk dominated the view, its swirling storms and dozens of moons creating a complex gravitational environment. But behind the gas giant, hidden from direct observation, something was generating enough energy to power a galactic capital world. "Take us around the planet. I want to see what they're hiding," Zethkar ordered. As the asterisk Vigilant Truth rounded Jupiter's massive curve, every being on the bridge fell silent. The sensor readings hadn't prepared them for what they actually saw with their own optical instruments. Floating in space behind Jupiter, connected to several of the planet's moons by massive industrial complexes, was a structure that defied everything they thought they knew about human engineering capabilities. It wasn't just a ship or a space station. It was both and neither, a construction so vast that Jupiter's own gravity well seemed to bend around it. The structure stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, its hull gleaming with materials that shouldn't exist according to galactic science. Massive hangar bays dotted its surface, some large enough to accommodate entire fleets. Energy conduits the size of battleships snaked across its hull, feeding power from Jupiter's own magnetic field into systems that Zethkar couldn't even begin to identify. "By the Seven Suns," whispered the Thurian second-in-command. "What is that thing?" Zethkar stared at the impossible sight before them. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was something that represented a complete paradigm shift in engineering, physics, and military capability. If humans possessed this level of technology, then every assumption the Galactic Council had made about Earth was fundamentally wrong. "Sir, we're being scanned," the sensor operator announced, his voice tight with anxiety. "The scanning beams are using principles I don't recognize. They're penetrating our shields like they don't exist." Admiral Chen's voice returned, but now it seemed to come from all around them, as if the human fleet had surrounded them completely. "Commander Zethkar, your time is up. You have witnessed something that was not meant for galactic eyes. I'm offering you one final opportunity to withdraw peacefully." Zethkar's mind raced through possibilities. The Council needed to know about this immediately, but if he withdrew now, he would be abandoning his duty to investigate potential threats to galactic security. Yet if he remained, his ship and crew might face technology that could overcome their defenses with ease. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "Nothing from you, Commander. Earth stands ready to defend itself and to take its rightful place among the galactic community. But we will do so on our terms, not as subjects of a council that views us as primitives. The Council exists to maintain order and peace throughout the galaxy. No single species can be allowed to develop weapons that threaten that stability." "Weapons?" Admiral Chen's laugh was neither friendly nor hostile, but something far more unsettling. "Commander, what you're looking at isn't a weapon, it's a necessity, and very soon you're going to understand exactly why we built it." The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at the massive construction that challenged everything he believed about the natural order of galactic civilization. Whatever the humans had built, it represented a shift in power that could change the balance of the entire galaxy. And deep in his mind, a troubling thought began to form. If humans could hide something this massive, This advanced, this revolutionary, what else might they be capable of? And more importantly, what threat could possibly require such an incredible response? As the asterisk Vigilant Truth held position in the shadow of humanity's hidden achievement, Zethkar realized that the galaxy was about to change forever. The only question was whether that change would bring salvation or destruction to everything they had built across the stars. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the command bridge of humanity's greatest achievement, watching as more Galactic Council ships arrived in the Sol system every hour. The massive viewscreen showed a growing collection of vessels from across known space, each one representing a different species that had come to witness what shouldn't exist according to their understanding of the universe. The bridge around her hummed with activity that would have seemed impossible to outside observers. Holographic displays showed real-time data from across the solar system, managed by crews whose training had been conducted in absolute secrecy for over 2 decades. The Terra Invicta Asterisk, as the massive supercarrier was officially designated, represented the culmination of humanity's greatest gamble. Admiral, we're now tracking 47 Council vessels in various stages of approach, reported Commander Jackson Torres, her second-in-command. Intelligence suggests representatives from at least 20 different species, including several from the Council's inner circle. Chen nodded, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Each approaching ship represented years of careful planning coming to fruition. Humanity had known this moment would eventually arrive, but the timing was crucial. "Any response from the Andromedans?" she asked. "Long-range sensors confirm their approach, but they're still 72 hours out," Torres replied. "Deep space monitoring stations report they're moving with their entire battle fleet." "Perfect timing," Chen murmured. The Andromedans were the galaxy's premier military power, a species that had dominated interstellar warfare for over 3 millennia. Their arrival would signal to every other species that Earth was being taken seriously as a potential threat. The main communication array activated, and the familiar scaled features of Commander Zethkar appeared on screen. Behind him, Chen could see the frantic activity of his bridge crew as they tried to analyze the readings from her ship. "Admiral Chen, I must protest in the strongest terms. Your construction violates numerous galactic treaties regarding military buildup by primitive species. The Council demands immediate inspection and explanation." "Commander, as I explained yesterday, Earth is no longer bound by treaties we never signed," Chen replied with perfect calm. "However, I'm willing to provide you with a demonstration of our capabilities. After all, seeing is believing." She gestured to Torres, who activated a sequence they had practiced countless times. Throughout the massive supercarrier, systems that had remained dormant during construction began coming online for the first time at full capacity. The effect was immediately visible to every ship in the system. The Terra Invicta began to move, not with the slow, ponderous motion expected from something of its incredible size, but with the fluid grace of a much smaller vessel. As it emerged fully from behind Jupiter, its true dimensions became apparent to the watching fleet. The supercarrier stretched nearly 50 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull composed of materials that seemed to bend light around them. Massive launch bays opened along its sides, revealing hangar spaces that could accommodate thousands of smaller vessels. Energy signatures spiked across the electromagnetic spectrum as weapons systems and defensive measures activated for the first time. "Impossible," came a transmission from one of the Nexilian observers. "Nothing that size should be able to achieve those acceleration rates." "Sir, I'm reading multiple gravitational anomalies around their vessel," reported Zethkar's sensor operator. "They appear to be manipulating local spacetime to reduce their effective mass." Chen allowed herself a small smile. The reaction was exactly what they had hoped for. Humanity's breakthrough in gravitational engineering had been the key to everything, but it was only the beginning of what the Terra Invicta represented. "Would you like to see more, Commander?" she asked. Without waiting for a response, she nodded to her navigation officer. The supercarrier began to demonstrate maneuvers that should have been impossible for something larger than most space stations. It rotated on its axis with perfect precision, accelerated to speeds that violated known physics for objects of its mass, and performed tactical formations that suggested a level of control normally reserved for single-person fighters. But the real demonstration began when the launch bays opened and Earth's new fleet emerged. Thousands of vessels poured from the Terra Invicta's hangar decks, but these weren't the primitive ships the galactic community expected. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering that incorporated technology decades ahead of anything in the Council's databases. They moved in perfect coordination, forming complex three-dimensional patterns that showcased both their individual capabilities and their collective tactical doctrine. "My God," whispered someone from the Thurian delegation, "how many ships are they launching?" The answer became clear as the deployment continued. The Terra Invicta carried a complete fleet of nearly 10,000 vessels, ranging from single-person fighters to massive dreadnoughts that rivaled the largest Council warships. Each one incorporated the same gravitational manipulation technology that allowed the Supercarrier to move with such impossible grace. "Admiral, you must understand the position this puts the Council in," Zethkar transmitted, his voice strained with the effort of maintaining diplomatic protocol. "Such a massive military buildup cannot be allowed to proceed without oversight. Commander, I appreciate your concern, but this buildup has already been completed. What you're seeing represents 23 years of development, conducted entirely within our own solar system using our own resources. No galactic law was broken, no territory was violated, and no other species was threatened." Chen activated another sequence, and the tactical displays showed the approaching Andromedan fleet. "However, I believe you're about to understand exactly why this development was necessary." The lead Andromedan vessel, a massive dreadnought called the Stellar Dominance was the most feared warship in known space. Its captain, High Commander Vexner, had never lost a battle and commanded a fleet that had conquered dozens of star systems. "Unknown vessels in Sol system, you will submit to immediate boarding and inspection. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force," came the transmission from the Andromedan fleet. Chen exchanged glances with Tors. The Andromedan's arrival ahead of schedule was unexpected, but their aggressive posture was entirely predictable. "High Commander Vexner, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You are in violation of Sol system territorial space. Withdraw immediately." The response was immediate and exactly what Chen had hoped for. The Andromedan fleet moved into battle formation, their weapons systems charging and their shields at maximum power. They had clearly decided that humanity's claims were nothing more than primitive bluffing. "Admiral, they're targeting our ships," Tors reported. "All vessels defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon," Chen ordered. The Andromedan fleet opened fire with weapons that had reduced planets to molten slag. Massive energy beams and kinetic projectiles that moved at significant fractions of light speed converged on the Terra Invicta and its escort vessels. Every being watching expected to witness the destruction of humanity's fleet. Instead, they saw something that challenged their understanding of defensive technology. The attacks simply stopped existing. Not blocked, not deflected, not absorbed. The weapon's fire entered a field around the human vessels and ceased to exist as if it had never been fired at all. "What happened to our weapons?" demanded High Commander Vexner. "You just experienced humanity's dimensional defense grid," Chen replied calmly. "Your weapons were redirected into an alternate dimensional space where they can do no harm." The implications of such technology hit every observer simultaneously. If humans could simply negate attacks by shifting them into alternate dimensions, then every weapon in the galactic arsenal was potentially useless against them. "This is impossible," Vexner snarled. "No species has ever developed dimensional manipulation to that degree." "High Commander, you've been operating under some incorrect assumptions about human capabilities," Chen said. "Perhaps it's time for a more detailed demonstration." She activated the Terra Invicta's offensive systems for the first time. The supercarrier's main guns weren't visible as traditional weapons. Instead, space itself seemed to bend around them as they powered up. When they fired, the effect was unlike anything the galactic community had ever witnessed. The shots didn't travel through space in the conventional sense. They opened temporary rifts in reality that allowed the weapons to strike their targets instantaneously across any distance. The demonstration shots, carefully aimed at empty space, created explosions visible from light years away as they tore holes in the fabric of spacetime itself. "Dimensional cannons," Tors explained to the stunned observers. Effective range is limited only by targeting accuracy. "Dear Creator," whispered someone from the Crystalline Confederation, "they've weaponized reality itself." Chen stood at the center of her command deck, surrounded by technology that represented humanity's greatest secret. For over 2 decades, Earth's best minds had worked in absolute secrecy, developing capabilities that seemed like magic even to those who built them. "Ladies, gentlemen, and respected beings of all species," she announced on an open channel to every ship in the system. "Welcome to humanity's debut as a galactic power. The Terra Invicta and her fleet represent our contribution to galactic civilization." "But this level of technology," Zethkar protested, "it surpasses anything in Council archives. How did a primitive world develop such capabilities?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Commander, that's exactly the point. We're not primitive, and we never were. We've been preparing for something the galactic community doesn't even know exists yet." As if summoned by her words, long-range sensors across the system began detecting anomalies at the edge of interstellar space. Something vast, an alien, was approaching from the direction of the galactic core, moving at speeds that suggested technology even more advanced than what humanity had just revealed. "Admiral," Tors reported quietly, "we're getting readings from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. They're early." Chen nodded grimly. The schedule they had carefully planned for years was about to be disrupted by forces beyond their control. "Commander Zethkar, High Commander Vexner, representatives of all species present," she announced. "You're about to discover exactly why humanity built the Terra Invicta. The real threat to galactic civilization is about to announce itself, and Earth stands ready to defend not just our own world, but every civilized species in this galaxy." The massive supercarrier turned toward the source of the approaching anomalies, its weapons systems charging with power that bent space around them. Across the Sol system, every ship present realized they were witnessing the beginning of something that would reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. The demonstration that followed would be remembered across the galaxy for generations to come. Admiral Chen stood calmly on the command deck of the Terra Invicta, while every military expert in the assembled fleet tried to comprehend what they were witnessing. "Helm full tactical maneuvers," Chen ordered. "Show them what human engineering can accomplish." The massive supercarrier began moving through space in ways that violated fundamental assumptions about physics. It accelerated from a dead stop to near-relativistic speeds in seconds, then stopped instantly without any apparent inertial effects on the crew. It phased in and out of normal spacetime, demonstrating the ability to become temporarily intangible while maintaining full weapons capability. Commander Zethkar watched his instruments with growing amazement and fear. "Sir, their vessel is somehow reducing its interaction with normal matter while maintaining structural integrity. According to our sensors, it's simultaneously solid and incorporeal." "Quantum phase manipulation," reported the Terra Invicta's science officer, Dr. Elena Vasquez, on an open channel. "We can shift our matter between dimensional states at will. It makes traditional weapons ineffective while allowing us to remain fully operational." High Commander Vexner of the Andromeden fleet was not impressed. "Parlor tricks," he snarled. "No amount of defensive technology can overcome sufficient firepower. All ships concentrate fire on their supercarrier." The most powerful fleet in the galaxy opened fire simultaneously. Weapons that could shatter moons and burn through planetary shields converged on the Terra Invicta with enough force to sterilize entire star systems. The human supercarrier didn't even attempt to evade. Instead, it demonstrated another capability that left the watching fleet speechless. Every attack simply reversed direction. The Andromeden weapons fire struck some kind of field around the human vessel and reflected back toward its sources with perfect accuracy. The stellar dominance found itself targeted by its own weapons, amplified to twice their original power. "Impossible," Vexner whispered as his own fleet's weapons damaged their shields. "Energy cannot be perfectly reflected and amplified simultaneously." "Commander Tors explained the principle to our guests," Chen said calmly. "Temporal reflection matrix," Tors announced. "We're not just reflecting your attacks back in space, we're reflecting them back through time to the moment just before you fired them. The amplification comes from drawing power from the temporal differential. The implications hit every observer like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't just manipulating space and matter, they were manipulating time itself as a weapon. This is beyond anything in our scientific understanding, transmitted the lead scientist from the ethereal collective, beings who prided themselves on theoretical physics mastery. Time manipulation on this scale should require the energy output of entire stars. Dr. Vasquez appeared on the communication channel, her expression serious but patient. Distinguished colleagues, you're operating under the assumption that time manipulation requires massive energy input. We've discovered that's not necessarily true when you understand the underlying quantum structure of temporal mechanics. She activated a holographic display that showed equations and principles that made even the most advanced scientists in the fleet struggle to follow. Time isn't a river flowing in one direction, it's more like a fabric with multiple layers. By understanding how to access those layers, you can perform temporal manipulations with relatively modest energy requirements. Relatively modest, muttered someone from the Nexilian science vessel. They're casually discussing technology that our entire civilization couldn't develop in 10,000 years. But the real demonstration was just beginning. Chen activated the Supercarrier's manufacturing systems, and the assembled fleets watched in awe as the asterisk Terra Invicta began producing new vessels in real time. Massive construction bays opened along the Supercarrier's hull, revealing automated systems that worked with impossible speed and precision. Raw materials flowed from processing centers connected to Jupiter's moons, while energy drawn from the gas giants' magnetic field-powered fabrication systems that seemed to create matter from pure energy. "Sir, they're building an entire cruiser in under 30 minutes," reported the Thurian sensor operator with disbelief. "Molecular assembly systems," Dr. Vasquez explained. "When you can manipulate matter at the quantum level, traditional manufacturing constraints become irrelevant. We can essentially print new vessels using any available materials as base components." The newly constructed cruiser launched from its assembly bay fully armed and crewed. But instead of additional human personnel, it was operated by artificial intelligence systems that demonstrated tactical awareness beyond anything in galactic databases. "AI technology is restricted by 17 different council treaties," Zethkar protested. "Artificial consciousness capable of independent military action poses an existential threat to organic life." "Commander, our AI systems aren't artificial consciousness as you understand it," Chen replied. "They're quantum-distributed processing networks that share consciousness with their human operators. Every AI unit is directly connected to a human mind, ensuring ethical oversight while providing enhanced capability." The demonstration continued as human vessels showcased technology after technology that challenged galactic understanding. Ships that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that fired through parallel universes to strike targets from impossible angles. Defensive systems that created localized time loops to prevent damage from occurring. "How long have you been developing these capabilities?" asked the representative from the Galactic Council's Science Division. "Publicly about 25 years, Chen answered. "In reality, humanity has been working toward this moment for over a century. We've simply been very careful about what we revealed to the galactic community." "Why the secrecy?" demanded High Commander Vexner. "Such technology could have benefited all species." Chen's expression grew darker. "Because, High Commander, we knew what was coming, and we knew that the galactic community wasn't prepared to face it." As if summoned by her words, every sensor array in the system began detecting massive gravitational anomalies at the edge of Sol's space. Whatever was approaching wasn't using conventional faster-than-light travel. Instead, it was literally tearing holes in space-time to reach them. "Admiral, we're detecting the emergent signatures," Torres reported grimly. "Multiple contacts, configuration unknown, but the energy readings suggest vessels significantly larger than anything in our databases." "Larger than the asterisk Terra Invicta?" asked Commander Zethkar. "Much larger," Chen replied, "and far more hostile." The first of the unknown vessels emerged from its dimensional rift at the edge of the solar system, and every being present understood immediately that they were looking at something that didn't belong to their reality. The ship, if it could be called that, was vast beyond comprehension, its hull composed of materials that seemed to absorb light and energy. Its geometry was wrong in ways that hurt to look at directly, as if it existed partially in dimensions that organic minds couldn't properly process. "By the seven suns," whispered someone from the Crystalline Confederation. "What is that thing?" "That," Chen said grimly, "is why we built the asterisk Terra Invicta asterisk. They're called the Devourers, and they've been consuming civilizations since before your species learned to use fire." More rifts opened throughout the system as additional Devourer vessels emerged. Each one was unique in its horrible design, but all shared the same wrongness that marked them as invaders from outside normal spacetime. "How do you know about them?" Zethkar demanded. "Because they've attacked our system before," Chen replied. 300 years ago, they nearly succeeded in destroying Earth. We've been preparing for their return ever since. The lead Devourer vessel began moving toward the inner system with speed that suggested it was somehow outside the normal constraints of physics. As it moved, space around it began to deteriorate, stars dimming and matter breaking down into component atoms. "They don't just destroy civilizations," Dr. Vasquez explained to the horrified observers. "They consume the fundamental forces that hold reality together. Everything they touch becomes part of their expansion into our dimension." "Your dimension?" asked the ethereal representative. "They're from somewhere else entirely," Chen confirmed. "A place where the laws of physics work differently, where consciousness and matter exist in states that would drive most beings insane just to comprehend." The Terra Invicta began moving toward the approaching threat, its escort fleet forming around it in patterns that seemed designed for a type of warfare none of the observers had ever imagined. "Admiral, surely you don't intend to face those things alone," Zethkar transmitted. "Commander, we appreciate the sentiment, but your weapons can't hurt them. Conventional energy and matter-based attacks simply feed their expansion into our reality. Fighting the Devourers requires technology specifically designed to combat extra-dimensional entities." The human supercarrier opened fire with weapons that bent reality around them. Instead of energy beams or kinetic projectiles, they fired controlled rifts in spacetime that created localized pockets of altered physics around their targets. The effect on the lead Devourer vessel was immediate and devastating. Portions of its hull began shifting back toward the dimensional space it had emerged from, forced to retreat by the conflicting physics the human weapons imposed on local space. "Dimensional warfare," Tors explained to the stunned observers. "We're not trying to destroy them with conventional force. We're forcing them back into their own dimensional space by making our reality incompatible with their existence." "This is impossible," High Commander Vexner said, but his voice lacked its earlier certainty. "No species has ever developed technology capable of manipulating fundamental reality." "With respect, High Commander, no species in this galaxy has ever faced the necessity we've faced," Chen replied. "When your choice is developing impossible technology or watching your entire civilization cease to exist, you discover capabilities you never knew you possessed." The battle that followed redefined every concept of space warfare held by galactic civilization. Human vessels phased in and out of normal reality, striking at enemies that existed partially in dimensions beyond conventional perception. They used weapons that fired through parallel universes and defensive systems that created bubbles of altered physics around their ships. But the most shocking revelation came when additional human fleets began emerging from hidden bases throughout the solar system. Mars revealed underground construction facilities that had been expanding for decades. The asteroid belt showed evidence of massive mining and manufacturing operations hidden within hollowed-out asteroids. Even Earth's moon opened to reveal launch facilities for vessels that made the Council's greatest warships look like toys. "How many ships do you have?" demanded Vexner. "Enough," Chen replied simply. "Earth has been preparing for this war for 3 centuries. Every human alive has contributed to our readiness in some way." As the human fleet engaged the Devourer invasion force, the watching galactic representatives realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity wasn't just defending their own system. They were demonstrating the capability to protect the entire galaxy from a threat that no other species even knew existed. And they were winning. The Devourers, entities that had consumed entire stellar clusters in other realities, found themselves being systematically forced back into the dimensional void they had emerged from. Human technology didn't just match their capabilities. It countered them with principles that made their very existence in normal space-time untenable. Admiral, Zethkar transmitted quietly, "It appears we owe humanity an apology, and perhaps our gratitude." "Commander, the gratitude can wait," Chen replied as more Devourer rifts opened throughout the system. "Because this is just the beginning. If you want to survive what's coming, you're going to need to learn very quickly how to fight a war against beings that want to devour your entire reality." The true scope of the threat was about to become clear, and humanity's hidden supercarrier was about to prove that Earth species possessed not just the technology to defend themselves, but the determination to defend every civilization in the galaxy. The truth about humanity's hidden knowledge emerged in fragments as Admiral Chen began sharing intelligence that the galactic community had never possessed. On the main display of the asterisk Terra Invicta asterisk, holographic records showed the first Devourer incursion 300 years earlier, when primitive Earth had barely achieved industrial technology. "The initial attack came without warning," Dr. Vasquez explained to the assembled fleet representatives who had gathered virtually on the supercarrier's conference deck. "London, Paris, New York, and 12 other major cities simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, they were erased from reality as if they had never been built." The holographic display showed historical records that made even the most hardened military officers in the Galactic Fleet uncomfortable. Entire regions of Earth had been consumed by expanding zones of altered reality, where the laws of physics simply stopped functioning normally. "How did you survive?" asked Commander Zethkar, his scaled skin pale with shock. "Barely," Chen replied grimly. "The attack lasted 72 hours before the Devourers withdrew. We lost approximately 200 million people and had no idea what had happened or why, but we knew with absolute certainty that they would return." The records showed humanity's desperate response to an enemy they couldn't understand using technology they didn't possess. Scientists, engineers, and theorists from every nation had worked together to analyze the residual dimensional distortions left behind by the Devourer attack. "It took us 50 years just to understand what had attacked us," Dr. Vasquez continued. "Another century to develop the theoretical framework for fighting back, and the final century to build the technology we're using today." High Commander Vexner studied the technical specifications that humanity was finally revealing. These dimensional manipulation capabilities, the quantum phase technology, the temporal reflection systems, your entire technological development was focused on fighting this one enemy. "Not just fighting them," Chen corrected. "Winning against them, because we discovered something during our research that changes everything about the galactic situation." She activated a new holographic display that showed the Milky Way galaxy, but with sections marked in red that indicated areas of space that seemed empty on all conventional star charts. The Andromeda sector, the outer spiral regions, the entire Magellanic Bridge, all of these areas show signs of previous Devourer incursions. Civilizations that once existed in those regions were consumed completely, their matter and energy converted into expansion vectors for extra-dimensional entities. The implications hit every observer simultaneously. The empty regions of space that galactic civilization had always assumed were naturally barren had once supported thriving civilizations that were completely erased from existence. "How many?" whispered someone from the ethereal collective. "Our estimates suggest at least 47 separate civilizations have been consumed over the past 10,000 years, Dr. Vasquez replied. "Some were small colonies, others were galactic powers that rivaled the current council in scope and technology." "Why weren't we warned?" demanded the representative from the Nexilian Science Institute. "Because there was no one left to warn you," Chen said bluntly. "The Devourers don't just kill their enemies, they erase them so completely that no record remains of their existence. The only reason we know about previous incursions is because we developed technology specifically designed to detect dimensional echoes." Commander Zethkar stared at the display showing the scope of previous attacks. "If they've been this successful, why haven't they consumed the entire galaxy?" "Because they're not from this reality," Chen explained. "Maintaining presence in our dimensional space requires enormous energy expenditure on their part. They can only sustain major incursions for limited periods before being forced to withdraw and rebuild their strength. The tactical situation became clearer as human intelligence officers shared data that had been gathered through 3 centuries of preparation. The Devourers existed primarily in a parallel dimensional space, where the fundamental forces of physics operated according to different principles. They could only enter normal spacetime at specific convergence points, where dimensional barriers were naturally weak. Sol's system is one of 17 major convergence points in this galactic region, Tors reported. That's why they attacked Earth first 300 years ago, and it's why they've returned now. What's changed? Asked High Commander Vexner. Why are they mounting a larger assault now? Dr. Vasquez manipulated the holographic display to show energy patterns throughout galactic space. The dimensional barriers are weakening across the entire galaxy. Our calculations suggest that within the next 50 years, the Devourers will be able to manifest anywhere in normal spacetime without requiring convergence points. Which means, Chen continued, this is their final major assault before they gain the ability to consume every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. The scope of the threat was staggering, but so was the scope of humanity's response. As the briefing continued, it became clear that Earth had not merely prepared to defend itself, but had developed the capability to take the fight directly to the enemy. The Terra Invicta isn't just a supercarrier, Chen revealed. It's a dimensional siege engine designed to establish beachheads in Devourer space. We're not planning to simply repel their invasion, we're planning to end their threat permanently. The assembled representatives struggled to comprehend technology that could function in a reality where the fundamental laws of existence operated differently. Human engineers had somehow developed systems that could adapt to any dimensional environment, maintaining functionality regardless of local physical laws. The weapon systems you've witnessed are just the beginning, Tors explained. Our real capability lies in dimensional manipulation on a massive scale. We can create stable pockets of normal spacetime within their reality, essentially forcing them to fight us under our physical laws rather than their own. But the most shocking revelation came when Chen activated the Asterisk Terra Invicta's Asterisk True defensive systems. The massive supercarrier began generating a field that expanded throughout the solar system, creating a zone where dimensional incursions became impossible. Dimensional stabilization field, Dr. Vasquez announced. We're essentially locking local spacetime into its current configuration, preventing the Devourers from altering physics within the affected area. The effect on the attacking Devourer forces was immediate and devastating. Their vessels, which had been partially existing outside normal reality, were suddenly forced to exist entirely within conventional spacetime. The transition was catastrophic for beings evolved for a different dimensional environment. They can't function properly in purely normal space, Chen explained as the Devourer ships began breaking apart under the stress of existing in only 3 dimensions. Their physiology and technology are designed for multi-dimensional existence. How large an area can you stabilize? Asked Zethkar. With the Asterisk Terra Invicta alone, we can secure approximately 1 solar system, Chen replied. But we didn't build just 1 supercarrier. The holographic display shifted to show construction sites throughout human space that had remained hidden for decades. Mars revealed underground shipyards that stretched for hundreds of kilometers beneath its surface. The asteroid belt showed evidence of massive industrial complexes hollowed out within larger asteroids. Even the outer planets had been converted into resource extraction and manufacturing centers. 12 sister ships to the Terra Invicta Asterisk, Tors announced. Each one capable of dimensional stabilization on a stellar system scale. Together, they can secure our entire local galactic region against Devourer incursion. 12. High Commander Vexner stared at the display with something approaching awe. You've built 13 vessels of this capability. Actually, Commander, Chen said with a slight smile, we've built 16. The other 3 are currently operating in Devourer space, establishing forward bases for our counteroffensive. The implications were staggering. While the galactic community had viewed humanity as a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel, Earth had been conducting military operations in parallel dimensions against enemies that could erase entire civilizations from existence. The dimensional gates you've seen the Devourers use, Dr. Vasquez continued. We learned to create them 70 years ago. We've been mapping their dimensional space, identifying key strategic positions, and preparing staging areas for a full-scale invasion of their reality. You're planning to invade their dimension? Asked the ethereal representative in disbelief. We're planning to end a threat that has consumed dozens of civilizations and will eventually consume all of them if left unchecked, Chen replied firmly. The Devourers view our reality as a resource to be harvested. We view their reality as a problem to be solved. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alerts from the Terra Invicta's asterisk sensor arrays. Additional Devourer rifts were opening throughout the galactic region, not just in Sol system, but at convergence points near dozens of inhabited worlds. Sir, we're detecting incursion signatures at Nexilian Prime, the Thurian homeworld, Andromeden Central, and approximately 30 other systems, Tors reported grimly. They're not just attacking Earth this time, Chen observed. They're making their move against the entire galactic community simultaneously. The assembled representatives realized simultaneously that they were witnessing the beginning of a war that would determine the survival of every sapient species in the galaxy. And the only civilization prepared to fight it was the one they had dismissed as primitive just days earlier. Admiral, Commander Zethkar said quietly, "What do you need from us?" Chen looked at the tactical displays showing Devourer incursions beginning across dozens of star systems. "Commander, what we need is for every species to understand that this is no longer about territorial disputes or technological superiority. This is about survival, and it's going to require every capable civilization working together." She activated the Asterisk Terra Invicta's Asterisk communication systems to broadcast on all galactic frequencies. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force to all sapient species in this galactic region. The dimensional incursions you're detecting represent an existential threat to all reality-based life. Earth stands ready to coordinate the defense of every inhabited world, but we cannot do this alone." "What are you proposing?" asked High Commander Vexner. "A galactic alliance unlike anything in history," Chen replied. "Every species contributing their unique capabilities to a war effort designed to eliminate the Devourer threat permanently, because the alternative is watching every civilization in the galaxy cease to exist." As Devourer forces emerged from dimensional rifts across the galaxy, humanity's hidden supercarrier prepared to lead a defense that would either save galactic civilization or witness its complete destruction. The universe was about to discover just how far humans were willing to go to protect not just their own species, but every form of life that shared their reality. The greatest military alliance in galactic history formed within hours of humanity's revelation about the Devourer threat. Admiral Chen stood on the command deck of the Terra Invicta Asterisk, coordinating with fleet commanders from 47 different species as reports poured in from across the galaxy. "Nexilian Prime is under full assault," reported Commander Zethkar, his scaled features tight with concern. "Their planetary shields are failing against weapons that seem to ignore conventional physics. Andromeden Central is holding for now, but High Command estimates no more than 18 hours before dimensional breakdown begins affecting the planet's core," added High Commander Vexner, his earlier hostility replaced by grim determination. Chen studied the tactical displays, showing the scope of the coordinated Devourer assault. 63 star systems were under attack simultaneously, a scale of invasion that dwarfed anything in recorded galactic history. "Admiral, the Ethereal Collective is reporting complete loss of contact with their outer colonies," came another transmission. 7 entire systems have gone dark in the past 6 hours. "Confirmed," Dr. Vasquez added from her science station. "Long-range sensors are detecting expanding zones of dimensional instability. The Devourers aren't just attacking individual worlds anymore, they're consuming entire stellar regions." The magnitude of the threat had finally convinced even the most skeptical species that humanity's warnings were genuine. The Galactic Council's emergency session had lasted less than an hour before unanimous agreement to place all military assets under Terran command. "Tor's deployment status on our sister ships?" Chen asked. "Terra Invicta II has established dimensional stabilization over the Nexilian system and is beginning counteroffensive operations. Terra Invicta Roman 7 asterisk is moving to support the Andromedan homeworld. The remaining vessels are positioning to protect major population centers across the galactic core. Chen activated the galactic communication grid that humanity had quietly installed over the past century. The network allowed real-time coordination across distances that should have required hours for conventional faster-than-light transmission. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Chen. Operation Omega is now in effect. Every species will contribute according to their unique capabilities, while human vessels provide dimensional stabilization and primary offensive power. The response was immediate as civilizations across the galaxy mobilized with unprecedented coordination. The ethereal collective's mental abilities allowed them to serve as instantaneous communication relays between human ships and allied fleets. Andromedan vessels, with their superior conventional weapons, provided cover for human dimensional engineering operations. Nexilian multi-limbed crew members proved invaluable at managing the complex control systems required for interdimensional warfare. Admiral, we're receiving reports from our forward bases in Devourer space, Torres announced. The enemy is withdrawing significant forces from their attacks on our dimension to defend their home territory. Chen smiled grimly. The 3 human supercarriers that had been secretly operating in Devourer space for the past year were finally revealing their presence, striking at strategic targets within the enemy's own dimensional realm. Phase 2 deployment all vessels, Chen commanded. Across the galaxy, human ships began demonstrating capabilities that redefined the nature of space warfare. Instead of simply defending against Devourer attacks, they began opening stable dimensional gateways that allowed allied fleets to follow them into enemy space. The sight of galactic civilization's greatest warships emerging into a reality where the laws of physics operated according to alien principles was both terrifying and magnificent. Andromedan dreadnoughts found their weapons systems adapted by human technology to function in a dimension where energy and matter behaved according to completely different rules. Ethereal vessels discovered they could use their mental abilities to directly manipulate the consciousness-based matter that comprised much of Devourer space. Sir, enemy resistance is collapsing across multiple fronts, reported the tactical officer aboard the Asterisk Stellar Dominance Asterisk. High Commander Vexner watched his sensors with amazement as Devourer forces retreated deeper into their own dimensional territory. They're not used to fighting defensive wars, Chen explained over the communication link. For millions of years, they've been the attackers, consuming civilizations that had no idea they existed. Facing coordinated resistance, especially in their own space, is completely outside their experience. But the Devourer's final gambit was more desperate and dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Deep within their dimensional realm, ancient entities that had slumbered for eons began awakening. These were Devourers so old and powerful that they had consumed entire galaxies in realities beyond counting. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the core regions of Devourer space, Dr. Vasquez reported with growing alarm. Something incredibly powerful is stirring in their dimensional deep. The tactical displays showed readings that challenged the capabilities of even human sensor technology. Entities were awakening that measured their age in billions of years, and their power in consumed civilizations spanning multiple realities. The Elder Devourers, Chen said quietly. Our intelligence suggested they might exist, but we hoped they would remain dormant. How powerful are we talking about? Asked Commander Zethkar. Individually, each one could probably consume our entire galactic cluster given enough time, Chen replied. Collectively, they represent a threat to the fundamental structure of this dimensional realm. But humanity had prepared for even this possibility. The Terra Invicta began powering systems that had never been tested at full capacity, drawing energy from sources that existed outside normal spacetime. All vessels prepare for Protocol Alpha, Chen announced. We're going to demonstrate why Earth spent 3 centuries preparing for this war. The Supercarrier began generating a field that didn't just stabilize local spacetime, but actually reinforced the fundamental laws of physics across vast regions of both normal and Devourer space. The effect was like imposing order on chaos, forcing reality to conform to principles that made human-style physics absolute throughout the affected area. Temporal anchor deployment successful, TORS reported. Local spacetime is now locked to our dimensional configuration across approximately 40,000 cubic light-years. The Elder Devourers, emerging into what they expected to be their domain of altered physics, instead found themselves trapped in a reality where their fundamental nature was incompatible with the laws of existence. Beings that had existed as living distortions of spacetime for eons suddenly found themselves forced to exist as conventional matter and energy. The transition was catastrophic for entities that had never existed within the constraints of normal physics. One by one, the ancient Devourers began breaking down as their extra-dimensional physiology proved unable to function within the stabilized reality field. Target the convergence points, Chen ordered. If we can collapse the dimensional gateways they use to access our space, we can trap their entire species in a reality they can't manipulate. The combined galactic fleet began targeting the infrastructure the Devourers had built over millions of years to facilitate their invasions of normal space. Vast dimensional anchors that had existed since before Earth's sun was formed were systematically destroyed by weapons that imposed impossible physics on everything they touched. Admiral, we're receiving surrender communications from surviving Devourer forces, TORS reported with something approaching disbelief. The transmission that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Devourers, beings that had never encountered successful resistance in billions of years, were offering to withdraw permanently from normal spacetime in exchange for cessation of hostilities. "What are your terms?" Chen asked the alien entity that appeared on the communication screen, its form barely comprehensible even with human dimensional translation technology. "We acknowledge your reality as sovereign," the Devourer entity replied, its words translated through complex algorithms that made communication between incompatible dimensional states possible. "We will seal the convergence points and withdraw to spaces that do not intersect with your existence and the civilizations you've already consumed. Gone beyond recovery, but no further consumption will occur in this reality cluster." Chen looked around at the representatives of dozens of species who had joined the war against an enemy they had never known existed. "The terms are acceptable, but conditional. Any future incursion into our dimensional space will result in immediate resumption of hostilities." "Agreed. Your species has proven that reality-based life can defend itself effectively. We will seek expansion in dimensions uninhabited by consciousness-bearing entities." The war that had threatened to consume galactic civilization ended not with destruction, but with recognition. The Devourers withdrew into dimensional depths that would never again intersect with normal space-time, while humanity established monitoring systems to ensure the barriers between realities remained stable. In the aftermath, the galactic community found itself fundamentally changed. Humanity's emergence as the dominant defensive power reshaped every aspect of interstellar politics and technology development. "Admiral," Commander Zethkar said during the victory celebration aboard the Asterisk Terra Invicta Asterisk, "I believe I speak for all species when I say we owe Earth a debt that cannot be repaid." Chen stood at the observation deck, looking out at the combined fleet that represented the greatest military cooperation in galactic history. "Commander, the debt was paid the moment every species chose to stand together against the threat. That's what makes this galaxy worth defending." High Commander Vexner joined the conversation, his manner completely different from the hostile warrior who had arrived to confront Earth just days earlier. "What happens now? Humanity clearly possesses technology that surpasses anything else in the galaxy. What happens now is that we build something better together than any of us could build alone," Chen replied. "Earth will share our dimensional technology with any species that wants to learn. In exchange, we'd like to learn from your experiences, your cultures, and your unique perspectives on existence." Dr. Vasquez approached with reports from across the galaxy. "Admiral, we're receiving applications from 17 species who want to join our dimensional research programs. The Ethereal Collective is particularly interested in exploring consciousness-based physics, while the Andromedans want to develop their weapons technology for interdimensional defense." "And the Council?" Chen asked. unanimous vote to restructure the galactic government as a true cooperative alliance rather than the hierarchical system they've used for millennia, Zethkar replied, with Earth holding a permanent advisory position on all matters related to dimensional security. Chen nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. The real work is just beginning. We've proven that galactic civilization can defend itself against external threats, but now we need to build something worth defending. A community where every species can contribute their unique strengths to challenges we haven't even imagined yet. As the combined fleets began dispersing to their home systems, carrying with them new technology, new friendships, and new understanding of what sapient species could accomplish together, the asterisk Terra Invicta remained in Sol's system. But it was no longer a hidden weapon held in secret. It had become a symbol of what determination, preparation, and cooperation could achieve against impossible odds. Earth had emerged from the shadows not as conquerors or overlords, but as the species that reminded the entire galaxy what it meant to defend something precious. And in doing so, humanity had ensured that their hidden supercarrier would be remembered not for the war it had won, but for the peace it had made possible. The universe was vast, full of wonders and dangers yet to be discovered. But for the first time in galactic history, every sapient species faced that future together, protected by technology that made their reality itself a fortress against anything that might threaten the miracle of conscious life among the stars. Humanity had kept its greatest secret for 3 centuries. Now, their greatest achievement would be shared with every being who called the galaxy home.